Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. A special shout out to our viewers from the USA's tri-state area and in Canada, accessing us through our sister network, CONCACAF TV, as well as our listeners on CBN 90.9 FM, which broadcasts in the US and the British Virgin Islands, along with the eastern side of Puerto Rico. We continue our discussion with the CONCACAF President, FIFA Vice President, Victor Montagliani. Now, in the previous segment, Victor, Lance touched on the issue of the increasing in the number of teams in the 2019 Gold Cup. We've had a lot to say about the expansion in the number of teams for the 2026 World Cup and the 48 teams. And apart from the traditionalists who didn't want the change, didn't see the need for the change, those who welcome it, the conversation has now moved to the question of, all right, that is where we're going. How much will our representatives in CONCACAF lobby to be awarded to the CONCACAF region? We have 3.5 now. Where do you think it's fair for us to go, given the number of additional places that are on FIFA's hands?
Yeah, I have a meeting at the end of this month with my Confederation presidents, and I think, and I'm hoping that we look at it from a holistic standpoint. Obviously, we're going to want the most we can get, but we also, I think, have to look at it from a holistic standpoint and what is good for the game. Mm-hmm. There's no use saying that we deserve 12 spots, because we both know we don't deserve 12 spots. Yes. But what is that number? I'm not sure what it is right now, but I think you need to sit in the room and you need to look at it as an asset. Mm-hmm. It's a FIFA World Cup. This is FIFA's bread and butter. What are the numbers that make sense? So it's not just about going there and saying, lobbying, CONCACAF needs this and that. Of course, there'll be some of that, but I think, we are leaders in the game, and we owe it to the fans to make sure we get it right, whatever that number may be.
Yeah.
Are we going to get more than what we have now? Absolutely. What that number is, we'll probably find out in the next month or so.
In any organization such as ours, or in any confederation such as ours, the strong teams will always hold their own against the strong teams in any other confederation. So the Mexicos, the USAs, and Honduras, Costa Rica, of course, strong teams. I've looked at the past winners of the CONCACAF Champions League and note that only one team from the Caribbean, Defense Force Trinidad and Tobago, who won it twice, and that was in the 70s. And we've had a Cuban team appear in the championship game twice. But beyond that, there's not been a strong Caribbean presence in the CONCACAF Champions League. And I know that cream always rises to the top and the strong will always get through. But what is the thinking behind the new administration in charge of CONCACAF to allow the other Caribbean nations, those less successful in the Champions League over the years, to build that capacity to compete with the Pachucas and the DC Uniteds of the LA Galaxies of this world?
Obviously there's some economic realities there. Pachuca is going to pay their players a lot more than
absolutely
where you're going to pay a player in the Caribbean or in Canada, quite frankly. But the reality is that we need to build that asset. The Champions League has immense potential for us. And let's be honest, it's a football product, but it's also a TV product. Mm-hmm. Just like the game we watched earlier with the UEFA Champions League, it is, it drives the sport. And so, but we have to balance the development side and the business side. And so what we're looking from a Caribbean perspective is we also announced another competition for clubs for what we call amateur and semi-pros, to start building the capacities there. And so what happens is you start building underneath. Obviously the clubs that are already in the Champions League in terms of the opening version, which starts in August of this year.
Yes.
There are teams that we know about, but there's also, I think, a need for pushing the development of the leagues within the Caribbean as well. So I think if we start pushing with more competition more often, you're going to see the development of that. And then obviously aggregating our assets within the Confederation will change the economics of the Confederation as well.
Is there an aspect of the management and administration of a club football that has to be addressed? Because you spoke of trying to build the Caribbean region, because I think nationally Caribbean teams are more equipped because of more investment to challenge other CONCACAF teams when they get to World Cup qualifiers than the club teams are able to. So there is a decided disadvantage for Caribbean teams which have a very underdeveloped professional football league. So how else can CONCACAF ensure or assist these Caribbean club teams to develop themselves?
We just had a workshop and conference in Costa Rica exactly for that. It was the first one. It was done as a joint venture with FIFA. It was sort of along the lines of a club licensing, but also it was the investment in investing in the human capital of the game. You're exactly right. So it's important that our administrators, our technical people at the club level are better than they are now.
Yes.
And so that's where we can help. Obviously, we can't help a club trying to buy a player, but we can definitely help from an educational standpoint in investing in the human capital of the club system in the Caribbean and even in Central America, and even to some extent even in North America, because it's all relative, right?
Yeah.
So,
how far behind the 8 ball is Caribbean territories with their administration? There's a former CFU and CONCACAF boss who suggested a couple of decades ago that they have come a long way. There was a time when Caribbean national football presidents ran the National Association from their car trunk. Many countries didn't have a real office or anything like that. How satisfied is CONCACAF with the advance of Caribbean territories and how they administer the game in their respective countries?
I think the challenge, I like to look at it not specifically from a Caribbean standpoint or a regional standpoint. I look at it more from a confederation standpoint. And I think we still have, in my opinion, a long way to go. And because my standards are high. And if you want to be the best or amongst the best, you have to be honest with yourself. And the reality is that there's no use patting ourselves on the back thinking we're great. And I also want people to look at it a different way. You can't look at football just from a Central American perspective or a Caribbean perspective, because the game is global. And so we need to have people that think globally but act locally, because there is obviously local, not only local issues, but how you deal with things in a different way, whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in St. Lucia. We understand that. So it's changing that mindset. And I think once we're focused, it's unbelievable what you can do when you're focused. And so I think that's really the change that we have to do. And what we'll see some significant changes over the next decade if we're able to focus and treat the game the way it should be treated and learn from the best. There's no use, as I said, looking to do it your own way when others have been there before.
A template,
right? And,
so there's a template.
And Asia's done that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, we're speaking with Victor Montagliani, the CONCACAF president, FIFA vice president, much more in our final segment with him after these.